Hi, I'm Adam Chapnick with the Security Token Academy. Today, we're pleased to bring you a corporate member interview with Securitize. The company's a gold corporate member of the Security Token Academy. Securitize is an end-to-end technology platform built for issuers looking to tokenize securities. Today, we're going to learn more about the company, their products, their team, and much more. And to do that, we go to Miami, where I'm joined by none other than the one and only Carlos Domingo, the co-founder and CEO of Securitize. Hey, Carlos, it's great to be speaking with you again today.
Hi, Adam. Good seeing you again.
So let's begin with a little background for those who aren't yet familiar with Securitize. Can you tell us how and why Securitize was created?
So the whole project started back around February 2017. At that time, a friend of mine who's very well known in the blockchain industry now, but has been very well known in the industry throughout many years, Brendan Ike. He is the founder of Mozilla, and a couple of years ago he set up the browser Brave, and he had the idea of basically issuing a token to manage the relationship between advertisers, consumers of content and producers of content. And he did one of the first, let's say, high-profile ICOs in Silicon Valley for the basic attention token, as it is called, the token for his company. And he was telling me that in February 2017 at Mobile World Congress, and I got intrigued about ICOs. I had been working on blockchain, but not really had been exposed or familiar with what ICOs were doing. And when that happened, I kind of opened up my eyes about new ways of monetizing platforms, and the whole idea about tokens and decentralization, etc. And back then, Brian was advising a common friend of mine, Ami Ben David, that was setting up together with Talal Yashif, a venture capital fund called Spice VC. And they were initially doing it in a very traditional way, like the normal LP-GP relationship, and no blockchain, no tokenization. And after Brendan did their ICO, we kind of got intrigued about the space, and kind of like the discussion started, like, why don't we tokenize the fund and issue an ICO for the fund? Back then, we call it ICOs for a fund. The term security tokens didn't really exist in the industry yet. And we started looking at that, and it became very clear very soon that what we were issuing were securities, right? And I think, in fact, now most people will recognize that a lot of the ICOs were actually issuing securities. But in our case, it was extremely clear, because you're basically tokenizing an LP interest on a fund that will receive eventually over time the exits, the proceedings from the exits of the companies that the fund has invested in. So we got intrigued about the concept of issuing securities on the blockchain via a token, and then we saw that another firm, Blockchain Capital, did one. The BCAP token, which is considered the first security token in the industry, and even got more interested in the topic because we felt like there's some other people thinking along the same lines. So, but back then there were not many providers of issuance platform. Like today, there's dozens. But when we started, there were not. None of them actually had like a finished product the way we envision it for our own fund. Right. So, given that we've been building products all our career, we then decided to hire a CTO, Shai Finkelstein, who today is the co-founder and CTO of Securitize as well, and started building our own issuance platform for Spice VC, for the fund. And then in September, we went live with the project, September 2017. And then, the market started shifting. So the SEC had done the DAO report, and some people like, Stephen McKeon had started talking about the advantages of, tokenizing securities and digital securities, etc. And a lot of people approached us saying, okay, who's providing the technology for you guys to do a security token offering for Spice VC? And the answer was, well, we just developed it ourselves, and we are using it. So, but maybe, if you guys are interested, we could license it. And then, those discussions with few companies turned into the idea of, let's split the two business. The fund is a very separate business from the platform itself, and the platform can actually be used by other companies. So in November 2017, we spun out Securitize out of Spice VC. And then we launched in January 2018 here, actually in Miami at the North American Bitcoin Conference. The day we launched, we already had few customers that had signed with us that were going to do security token offerings. So actually, we've been revenue generating since Q1 2018, since the beginning of the company. And the rest is kind of history, as they say, because we've been growing a lot the last year and this year in Q1 as well. We have more than 27 customers, 7 customers that are live with securities issues, 4 that are trading, etc. So you're going to be asking me more details about the current status.
Yeah, so you mentioned a few of the key team, but you didn't tell us too much about yourself. Is there anything you can share about your background that got you here?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm originally from Barcelona, from Spain. I studied computer science. I'm an engineer by training. I went to Japan very early on, at the beginning of the 90s, to do a master, and then I did a PhD in computer science at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. So I lived in Japan many years, more than 10 years. At that time, once I graduated from my PhD, I worked for a couple of years in Toyota, but then, these were the 90s, right? So the same frenzy that you have today on the crypto space, back then was the dot-com space when internet was starting. So, I couldn't stay much longer on a corporate job, and decided to jump and join a startup that, we were lucky enough that we were one of the first companies that did an IPO in NASDAQ in Japan. So NASDAQ, when it was booming here in the US, it opened up a subsidiary in Japan. So we did an IPO. I moved to the US with that company at that time, almost 20 years ago now. Live on the West Coast. We acquired 3 companies. And then I went through all the downturn of the dot-com as well. So the dot-com crash was pretty major. We suffered like most companies on this space. So I was appointed the CEO for everything outside Japan to basically consolidate the 3 companies we have acquired and try to manage the situation, reduce cost, sold some product lines, focus on some others. And then in 2006, things were picking up again. And then I was recruited by Telefónica, who is a local telco from my country, from Spain, but presence in 23 countries. It's a Fortune 500 company. And at the beginning, they basically hired me to start looking at things beyond connectivity, right? So building digital services. I started with a small team of 40 people, and over the years grew it to a peak of 1,500. Became the head of global R&D for entire company. Worked on a big project called Telefonica Digital. And then, like everything else, after 8 years, I got another offer. And in 2014, I moved to Dubai. So I was working when I was there for the local, telco operator, also setting up their digital operations. And then as part of my work there, won a project for building the platform for smart cities for the city of Dubai. It's an interesting project called Smart Dubai. And then the government of Dubai started looking at blockchain as a potential platform for basically running all the different transactions of the government. So that was kind of my first exposure to blockchain technologies in 2016. We started running a lot of pilots out of a government entity that was set up to look at blockchain. And then 2017, this is when blockchain really activity took off, and I became so interested that I thought that after 10 years in .com and then 10 years in mobile, the next 10 years I want to be in fintech and the blockchain space.
A true citizen of the world. So
Yes.
We here at the Security Token Academy, as you know, we are all about tokenization, and we are definitely seeing the tokenization trend happening. Now, for our viewers, can you explain exactly what tokenization is and why one might even tokenize with digital securities?
So tokenizing is, is nothing else but issuing a token on a blockchain that is a digital representation of an underlying security or an asset. And then the fact that you issue it on a blockchain, then it has a number of advantages as opposed to, let's say, other centralized ways of representing digitally a security, which already exists, right? So it's really not a new concept. And the main advantages are basically that you can prove ownership through a cryptographically secure shared ledger. So no one can actually manipulate the fact that you own that token. You can then program the compliance of the security at the token level, so you can make sure that this token, which represents security, is only transferred to other people that can actually hold the same security and that you're allowed to transfer it. You can also program all the features of the security. Let's say if it's a dividend-paid security, you can program it. If you want to conduct a proxy vote, you can do it. And then more importantly, with all these features, you can then basically do instant settlement of a trade. So something that most security trading systems don't support, which is the post-trade settlement, where you can actually move the token from one person's wallet to another person's wallet, and then as the T0 friend said, the trade is the settlement. So once the trade happens, it settles, and then you eliminate all the issues of counterparty risk and central depositories, custodians, etc. that are companies designed to basically keep the risk of a trade and having not settled. And then, this also allows to do interesting things like reconstruct the cap table in real time. So for our customers, they know who the token holders are. all the time, even if the token is trading on the secondary market, which is something that, as simple as it seems, doesn't actually happen in real life. Like today, if you're Apple or Facebook, you actually don't know who your holders are of your shares, because a lot of the brokers settle the street name of the broker, and they do all the trades behind the scenes, or after the security has been purchased, it doesn't settle. It takes like 2 or 3 days, depending on the country, etc. So those are the main advantages of security tokens.
Yeah, well said. So what is your overall vision for digital securities as a whole in this year, 2019?
I think, we're still early days. In spite of the hype and the news and the announcements and the partnerships and like the activity in the industry, as someone I can consider myself as an industry insider, I can tell you that we're still at very, very early days. We don't know of many security tokens that actually have been issued on the blockchain. I would say probably there is a dozen or not more than that. That's a very, very tiny figure compared to the amount of, let's say, private placements that happen every year. In 2017, only in the US were 40,000. So you can think of globally, there's probably 150 to 100,000 private securities issued every year, and we're just scratching the surface in the projects. The technology still is a bit immature. The lack of knowledge from both investors and issuers is still a problem. Exchanges, which I guess we're going to be talking in a minute, just launched recently, so there's still limited liquidity, which is one of the promises of security tokens. So I think it's a very interesting. I think it's a very transformational technology, but we're still early days, and 2019 is not going to radically change, in my opinion.
Let's shift to you, particularly Securitize. Tell us about your DS protocol, could you?
Yes, so DS protocol is something, the DS comes from Digital Securities Protocol. This is basically a compliance protocol that allows, a security to be issued on the blockchain and manage the compliance and the life cycle of the security. So we come up with our own version of this. There's plenty out there, but we have developed our own one to be able to evolve it. It's very complex, a lot more complex than most people think. You require a number of smart contracts that interact with each other on a blockchain that control, a registry of who can potentially hold the security, as well as what are the compliance rules of the security. And then, in real time, we're capable of basically verify whether a trade can happen or not, and then update the entire list of token holders. And this allows us to do other things on top of it, which is like, for instance, conduct votes or issue dividends or payouts and other, functionality that a security is required. And the protocol basically is at the heart of what we do, and what's integrated with exchanges that, list tokens that have been issued with Securitize.
What are some of the marketplaces and exchanges that support the DS protocol?
So today we've worked with 3 different ones: OpenFinance, Sharespost, and AirSwap. The 3 of them have integrated and successfully conducted trades. The OpenFinance launched in December, and today they list 4 tokens. The 4 of them actually, issued by Securitize and powered by the Digital Securities Protocol, the DS protocol. So we're the only company that has tokens listed on OpenFinance. We have recently also launched with Sharespost. Again, the only security tokens that are trading in Sharespost are powered by the Digital Securities Protocol. With AirSwap, we've done some tests, but they haven't launched yet formally the trading of security tokens. And we're also working with all of the exchanges out there, into integrating the protocol to be able to list our tokens.
Can you share some of the issuers, the digital security issuers that are actually on the platform in either of those exchanges?
I can share the ones we finished, because the ones we are working with, we usually don't like to mention them or do announcements because it could be perceived as soliciting of securities, and we're not a broker dealer, so we try to be very careful about the kind of things we do.
Very prudent.
The ones that have finished, obviously, is public information, so it's not a problem. So the tokens that we've issued are, so we've done 2 things. One, so we've issued new projects, let's say SpiceBC, which was the first one, Lottery.com, Ocumate, 22X, but we've also migrated early security tokens like BCAP from Blockchain Capital or Science from Science Blockchain that were issued prior to us being on existence, with a very, let's say, rudimentary technology and protocol. And then once we come up to market, they actually move to our platform.
Yeah, that's a key vote of confidence that I observed, was that a lot of the early issuers kind of took a look at what was out there, saw what you guys were doing, and said, you know what, that looks a little better. Let's shift to that. I thought that was a great moment for Securitize, sort of in the community.
Yeah, I think that some of the early tokens didn't really have the transfer restrictions baked into the token itself, into the smart contract. So they were using things like, okay, because your tokens are locked up, I won't give it to you, I'll keep it on a central wallet, and tricks like that, which is not really practical if you want to list on exchange.
Right.
None of them obviously had the protocol integrated with exchanges to be able to trade, and some of them, their interest was to be able to trade, like BCAP. And then finally, the other thing that most people don't understand is that the crowdfunding part, let's say, of like fundraising to issue the token, that's just the beginning of a very, very long journey where you need to be able to manage the security for all the type of things that might happen, that you need to basically act on the security. Let's say if someone gets divorced, and you need to be able to somehow move half of the tokens from one person to another, and these things, either you hire blockchain engineers that know how to interact with the smart contracts and multi-sig and things like that, or you need some sort of platform for the lifecycle management of the securities on the blockchain, which is what we provide to all these customers.
So can you tell us about any product announcements from Securitize or news that you have to share? I always love to hear what you guys are up to.
I think the thing that we announced recently that we've been very excited about it is that we were approached by IBM to join the IBM Blockchain Accelerator. It's the first edition they do, and we were one of the first companies accepted to participate. And then the focus of the project is around fixed income and debt, which I think is a very, very nice use case for security tokens, and that has opened up the option for us to collaborate with IBM and some of their customers, which tend to be more institutional and banks, and as opposed to most of the customers that we were dealing with today, and also to experiment with Hyperledger, and recently became members of the Hyperledger Foundation, and we're actively now developing there. And the other interesting project that we have announced recently is that we started working here in the US with a company called Elevated Returns that had fundraised for creating a security token for the St. Regis Hotel in Aspen. And then eventually they also moved to our platform, so we issued the token and are managing currently the token, the investors, the dividends, and everything. And then as part of that project, we expanded with them. They have a number of projects going on in Thailand, so we've been working there with the regulator to make sure everything they do and we do is compliant according to the local jurisdiction rules. And this project then, we came together with the Tezos Foundation and are currently porting our protocol and our platform to work on top of Tezos and do some of these issuance on Tezos, which I think is an exciting thing for us, because we've always tried to be blockchain agnostic. I think out of all the many platforms out there, they all have pros and cons. So the fact that we are now starting to develop further blockchains is an exciting progress for us.
No doubt. So you mentioned compliance with regard to the Elevated Returns guys, who we've had on the show. We've been following that project at the St. Regis closely. Can you talk to us generally about the importance of compliance and liquidity and why they're so key to the security token space?
Well, compliance is very important if you don't want to go to jail, right? Because you're dealing with security. So I think that's a very good reason to try to be compliant. I think that, especially in this space of blockchain, that there's been so many legal issues and scams and things like that. Make sure that what you do is compliance is extremely important. But generally, I mean, if you're touching regulated products like securities, you have to make sure you're doing things by the book, because otherwise you can have a problem with the regulator, and some regulators are very strict, especially in everything has to do with touching retail customers. Regulators at the end of the day, they're there to protect the retail customers. So from our perspective, we think that regulators like security tokens better than traditional securities, because they can actually somehow guarantee that the compliance is enforced at a software level, at a blockchain where it's cryptographically secure and cannot be tampered with. So it's not that someone can go and hack your smart contract and modify it if the contract is written properly. And it also provides them, traceability and auditability of everything that has happened in the past, right? So if something goes wrong, you can always go back to the blockchain and see what was the trades and how the token move across wallets and which rules were implemented, etc. So I think that from that perspective, compliance is very important, but I think that the world of security tokens brings programmable compliance, which is something that the regulators are going to love, because it basically guarantees them that compliance rules are being enforced.
Yeah, it's interesting because it actually enforces the behavior before it happens instead of chasing it after it happens.
Exactly.
You would think they love it, right? So can you discuss the role that you guys play with issuers particularly? What services do you provide, and what's the experience that they get with you?
So with issuers, we have like two phases, if you want, right? One is the before issuing the token and the after issuing the token. So before issuing the token, what we offer is some sort of like, if you want, crowdfunding platform where they can actually onboard investors, do KYC, AML, accreditation. We actually support many different jurisdictions on the process of how you onboard investors for buying a security, which in most cases is an unregistered security with a regulator. It's legal, but it's not registered. So there's certain rules and restrictions depending on the country about how you actually present that to potential investors. Once the investors are in the platform and they've been verified and validated, we offer them a number of ways where they can actually purchase the security, whether it's fiat or crypto, and we've integrated escrow providers as well as crypto custodians. Once they purchase the security, they can also sign subscription agreements online, and the whole process is tried to be made as digital as possible. And then eventually they can register a wallet where they're going to be receiving their securities as tokens, right? And then we basically take care of providing a platform that is end-to-end, that controls everything, and the issuer can customize and modify in a very simple way without having to actually program to reflect their needs. And we also provide the smart contract that represents the security with the specifics around that particular security, which might be different type of security, different features, different number of tokens being issued, price, lockup periods, etc., as well as code the compliance rules according to that particular security, and make sure with their lawyers that that's exactly what we need to be programming there. Once the security is issued, we move to phase 2, which I think this is where the most interesting things are happening. And because we've already have a number of live securities, we actually have, I think, a good understanding of precisely why that is more important. A security is something that is live, that is going to exist for a number of years, hopefully for many, and that requires to be actively managed, because it means that it's going to trade, and if it's going to trade, you have to provide the tools for the issuer to be able to be integrated with exchanges and list their token, which, as we discussed before, we do. But you need to be able to then reconstruct the, let's say, cap table or list of token holders after a trade has happened, so the issuer knows who their token holders are all the time, which we also do, and then provide them a number of tools to be able to operate the security, whether it's communicating to the token holders, whether it's conducting a vote for a governance event, whether it's issuing a dividend in some cases of some of our customers, like, let's say, the St. Regis Hotel in Aspen, or whether it's doing any kind of corporate actions that you need to do with a security, and people don't realize that's where the complication is. So we've implemented a lot of these corporate actions in a platform that the issuer doesn't need to know anything much about blockchain. So it's basically a UI and a web-based platform for them to manage their security once it's been issued on the blockchain.
So what about the other side? What about investor services? How do they relate with you? How do they integrate?
Well, so as I mentioned before, we're not a broker-dealer. We've taken the position that it's very difficult to be a good broker-dealer for any issuer because we have customers in different geographies. We have customers that are doing real estate. Some customers are operating businesses. Some customers are VC funds, etc. So we've taken the position of not become a broker-dealer and partner with multiple broker-dealers. We have more than a dozen partnerships with different broker-dealers in different geographies that are the ones that will help the issuer find the investors. So to the extent that we communicate with the investor is in two areas. One is obviously the onboarding process, because the investors get onboarded through our platform with our tools managed by the issuer. And the second one is that a lot of the functionality we provide after the security has been issued on the blockchain are all these corporate actions that typically issuers need to do with an investor, that they are all facilitated by our technology.
Got it. So you guys have something called your support services tools. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So the tools that we support, as I mentioned, are everything has to do with onboarding an investor for a security offering and purchase the security. So KYC, AML, accreditation, document viewing, document signature, etc. And that's at the beginning. And then the second one are all the tools to basically manage the security and the owners of the security, the investors on the security after the security has been issued. So whether it's conducting a vote, issuing a dividend, doing also all the corporate actions like being able to rescind security has been issued to one person, issued to someone else in case there's a reason for doing that, or as I mentioned before, there's a divorce, etc. So all these tools are part of our offering for issuers to help them basically manage a live security on the blockchain that in our case also is liquid. So it's much more difficult to manage that as security that it doesn't have liquidity and doesn't change hands frequently.
Well, while you're modest and may be hesitant to talk about yourself, we love hearing about it. So tell us here about your roadmap and any future goals you can share.
So I think this year we have a very aggressive target in terms of a number of issuers that we can help. Primarily because in November last year we raised our Series A. Now we have external investors, which we've never had before, and then we want to make sure that we provide the growth that they're expecting. So I think we're doing a number of things. We're rolling out a new version of the platform within literally 1 or 2 weeks, where we've done besides a lot of new features. I think we've done a lot of the lift off of the UI, for instance, which was something we were using internally and our issuers were not using. As we grow in the number of customers, we can try to push to them the work of managing and using the platform. Then we're also adding a lot of more functionalities for the type of securities that we're managing, as well as the compliance rules that as we are adding new customers, we are learning more and more about the type of restrictions, especially in the secondary market, which is new, that we need to be implemented. And that, as I said, opens up a whole lot of complications for the protocol that I think most people don't realize about it. So we're putting a lot of effort on that, making sure the protocol is as sophisticated and flexible and versatile as possible. We're also doing support for other blockchains. We're going to start with Tezos and Hyperledger, but you're going to see more during this year. I think that's going to be one of our focus throughout 2019, and then more integration with exchanges. I think that for us, being able to provide liquidity to our customers is a key feature, and we've already done OpenFinance and Sharespost, but the next few months you'll see some more announcements with all the exchanges that are supporting the protocol and are going to start listing the tokens of our customers.
Well, we love hearing about it. We're excited for you. Carlos Domingo, the founder and CEO of Securitize, thank you so much again for speaking with us today. We wish you and everybody at Securitize the best of luck.
Thank you, Adam, and thanks for the Security Token Academy for doing a very good job for the industry.
Securitize is a gold corporate member of the Security Token Academy. To learn more, go to our website, securitytokenacademy.com, and click on the Directory tab and the corporate member homepage. For everyone here at the Security Token Academy, I'm Adam Chapnick. See you soon.